October 12, 2022, ticks 4 p.m. at 17 p.m. Eastern Time. The blinking cursor on the high-security terminal paused for a fraction of a second too long. It was the sound of opportunity closing, the final keystroke that sealed the fate of one of the largest corporate espionage operations ever attempted against the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. How could a single, unauthorized digital key, a ghost in the machine, bypass the most sophisticated cyber defenses protecting the nation's financial backbone? That afternoon, the vault didn't explode. It simply opened, silently, revealing that the access code wasn't stolen, it was given. The silence in the subterranean server room was absolute, a heavy, vacuum-sealed quiet that swallowed sound. For the first time in its operational history, the SEC's Central Investigation Database, the repository for every major insider trading tip, every subpoena, every impending market manipulation takedown, had been accessed using credentials belonging to a division director who was, at that precise moment, 1,500 miles away giving a deposition. The internal alarms designed to scream at the slightest anomaly remained mute, issuing only a faint, almost imperceptible red ripple across a monitoring dashboard that nobody was watching closely enough. This is the story of the phone swap, not a physical exchange of hardware, but a digital hijacking so elegant, so surgically precise, that it exploited the very trust the SEC placed in its own systems. The digital dust began to settle hours later when a routine compliance check flagged an unusual outbound data transfer. Terabytes of proprietary, sealed documents hemorrhaging onto offshore servers, masquerading as legitimate cloud storage backups. But by the time the security team fully grasped the scope of the breach, the perpetrator was already gone, leaving behind only the faint echo of their activity. We have to rewind. We travel back 7 months to a bustling coffee shop in downtown Washington, D.C., where the air was thick with ambition and the smell of stale espresso. Here, the operator, we'll call him the analyst, was unremarkable. He blended into the backdrop of junior lobbyists and over-caffeinated analysts, his laptop displaying spreadsheets that looked entirely mundane, quarterly projections for municipal bonds. But the screen was a deliberate camouflage. Beneath the benign exterior, he was mapping the peripheral nervous system of the SEC itself. The analyst wasn't interested in trading secrets. That was amateur hour. He was interested in process. He needed to understand the specific, proprietary system the SEC used for its high-priority, off-the-books communications, the system that bypassed standard email encryption for urgent internal warrants and emergency trading halts. This system relied on a two-factor authentication protocol tied specifically to the mobile devices issued to senior staff, devices they treated like extensions of their own hands. The crucial step wasn't hacking the phone. It was convincing the SEC's mobile device management server that a completely different device was the legitimate asset. It required exploiting a vulnerability in the provisioning software, a tiny flaw in the handshake protocol that verified the device identity upon network reconnection. Every day, hundreds of SEC employees docked their phones, rebooted, and reconnected to the secure internal network. Each reconnection was a potential moment of vulnerability. The analyst needed physical proximity, or something very close to it. He needed to intercept that initial device handshake signal, capture the unique hardware signature, and clone it onto a burner device he controlled. This required engineering. The next piece of the puzzle falls into place 6 weeks later, in a nondescript electronics repair shop in suburban Virginia, a location chosen specifically for its proximity to a major government contractor hub. The analyst didn't enter the shop. Instead, a customized low-power transceiver, disguised within the casing of a standard 5G repeater box, was discreetly installed in the building's HVAC access panel above the alleyway. This box emitted a focused, directional signal designed to mimic the official SEC Secure Network Gateway, a phantom access point. The target was the division director, a man named David, known for his predictable routines. To get a ready shipping. That requires the final, most audacious step. The phone swap. The analyst didn't swap David's phone. He swapped David's account. He used the cloned key to remotely initiate a device migration request with the SEC's internal identity management portal, flagging David's real phone as lost and requiring immediate replacement. The system, believing the request was authentic because the cryptographic key matched, authorized the transfer of David's high-level administrative privileges to a new, unknown device, the analyst's own encrypted handset, which was now broadcasting from an apartment complex in Miami. The moment the transfer was confirmed, the digital leash was cut. David's actual phone was now locked out of the sensitive network, but David didn't know it yet. He noticed nothing unusual until he tried to access a secure briefing later that week and was met with an unfamiliar error code. By then, the analyst had 12 hours of unchallenged administrative access, 12 hours to map the investigation files, identify targets, and package the data. The stolen billions weren't currency, they were actionable intelligence. The identities of informants, the details of pending market manipulation cases, and most critically, the algorithms the SEC used to predict fraudulent trading patterns. This information sold instantly on the dark web to entities seeking regulatory immunity, or those looking to short the very stocks the SEC was preparing to defend. The resulting trades, executed just hours before the official announcements, generated illicit profits estimated in the high eight figures, potentially spiraling into the billions across associated markets. Back in the quiet panic of the SEC command center on October 12th, the security team finally isolated the anomaly. They traced the initial access back to the time David's credentials were used, but the trail evaporated immediately. There was no brute force attempt, no compromised password, just a legitimate login from an authorized device signature that had vanished from the network logs as soon as the data transfer completed. The lead investigator, staring at the screen displaying David's remote login trace, noticed a single, almost invisible detail. A timestamp discrepancy of 1.2 seconds between the server's receipt of the login command and the system's official authentication confirmation. A digital hiccup. That 1.2 seconds was the window where the system validated the identity while the device was already communicating from a different continent. It was the proof of the digital impersonation. Who was the analyst? After months of frantic digital archaeology digging through layers of shell companies and encrypted chat logs, the trail led not to a foreign state actor or a known cyber syndicate, but to a former systems architect for the very company that built the SEC's mobile authentication software. A man fired 3 years prior for unauthorized experimentation with network topology. He didn't steal the key. He wrote the door lock, and he knew precisely where the deadbolt didn't quite catch. The irony is crushing. The defense system built on the principle of verified hardware identity was ultimately defeated by a perfect digital forgery executed through a mundane, forgotten protocol flaw. The greatest financial regulator in the world was undone not by superior force but by a perfect understanding of its own internal language. The physical phone was irrelevant. It was the idea of the phone, the digital ghost of its identity, that walked straight through the digital gates and stole the secrets within.